listening to the talks and reflecting on the topics, there were two things which were coming up quite commonly, which was about multi-core, multi-threading, parallel programming, parallel constructs, etc. It was probably the exact same hall in early 2001, 2002, 2003. I don't recall the exact year, when I had organized an event very similar to this, where we had gotten one of our VPs to talk to the move from gigahertz to parallel programming, or move from gigahertz to multi-core, as we have called it then. It was interesting to sort of think about it, that it's almost taken 8 to 10 years for the industry still to transition. I mean, we've been shipping multi-core processors now for a couple of years now, over a couple of hundred million. But the software effort around it continues to be a little bit of challenge. A lot of effort is going in. So it was the summary I had in my mind was, it does take a while for that software transition to happen. It does take a while, and the skill set change, and maybe even a generation change, because most of us grew up writing linear code, and now most of the younger generation are going to grow up writing parallel code, or at least will have to write parallel code, or worry about code running in parallel also. Maybe another. Anyway, that's not the focus of my talk. What we're going to do is chat a little bit about, very quickly, about what's evolving around us, how does that have an impact, and we'll touch upon two topics today, specifically in terms of how we interact with computing, and how we can make it productive with software standards. So we'll touch upon those. But I think apps everywhere, for everyone, for everything is no surprise. I think most of you know the phrase that if you're at a conversation with friends or party or at work, and you bring up a topic, most people respond, oh yeah, there's an app for that, right? You can go do that, right? Or there's an app for this, and there's an app for that. Most of us who are still relatively tech savvy will say, really? Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, so I just came back from a holiday literally yesterday to work, and I spent a lot of time in Kashmir, almost 8-9 days. And one thing which I noticed was, I've done a lot of skiing in my past, but I was walking in the snow, and there were a lot of the positive thing was a lot of elderly ladies and gentlemen, trying to trudge along in the snow and walking either with the saris or chappals. It was interesting. I was just thinking, they're watching, like, simple physics can help them not fall, because a lot of people are falling and slipping and flipping on the snow. And so I walked up to a couple and said, listen, you're walking downhill in snow and you're walking straight, and that's a perfect recipe for you to slip and hurt yourself. Why don't you just walk sideways, right, and see if you can put your weight on your left foot and right foot, and then it's like, no, but you're going to slip faster. That's okay. Well, do the reverse pizza. How many of you have done skiing, or at least of ski lessons, right? In ski lessons, they tell you do the pizza or the reverse pizza when you want to slow down, or depending if you're going uphill or downhill, right? So you start doing the pizza, and you start walking down, this way, and there's a 90% chance you won't slip unless you do something really silly. Just thinking, with some of the sensors we have, which can measure, height and pressure, etc. Maybe I need to have an app for that, right? To teach me how to start walking, right? And depending on the terrain, teach me how to start walking, right? That's to the extent how our brains are going to, like, we need an app. Practically everything, we end up doing, right? The other thing we realized was, everywhere we would go, I had taken my kids along and done a historic tour around Delhi and all Agra, the usual historic sites. Our sites are so, our historical, physical sites are so woefully inadequate in terms of knowledge. You just have to literally go to every place. You go to the Jantar Mantar, look at the sundial, and then you Google there, and then say, okay, wow, this is. It could have been very simple if I could just, then augmented reality, took a picture, overlay. I'm sure there's an app for that. But the experiences for the next generation of consumers is moving in that direction, where practically every experience you go through in your daily life is going to get enhanced by some form of an application on some device whatsoever. That's pretty much the trend going forward. As the second bullet says, the number of devices are growing. I don't think I need to put up fancy charts with statistics from all the various agencies to tell you that the number of devices per individual is growing, regardless of which market you go in, right? I mean, over the last 2 weeks, as an example, I must have rented 3 or 4 different vans and cars to work with others. Every driver had 3 phones and at least one smartphone, right? 3 phones, and I'm sure one of those had dual SIMs and quad SIMs and all that stuff, right? Why do you keep so many phones? Get a dual or get SIM or get 2 dual SIMs. Like, no. Business and interaction, but each of them is carrying multiple devices. One of them is saying, I left my tablet at home. Like, wow. The guy, the van I had in Kashmir had his GPS, he had his tablet, he had 2 phones. It's just a regular Innova I picked up, from the airport, right? So the number of devices per individual is, regardless of who you are and which spectrum of the society you belong to, is growing. Now, how smart and how expensive those vary based on the spectrum of the society, but it's definitely growing. Right? Business models, again, many of you probably are entrepreneurs or or publish apps or try to make money out of apps or have been involved in helping others in making money out of apps. Know that business models are emerging, changing, adapting, regenerating, and God knows what else new is going to come up in that. And the last one that we'll talk about a little bit more than this is interaction is not just getting personal, but it's getting personalized more and more and more. And we'll touch a little bit more upon that, right? Bottom line is, practically everybody here, directly or indirectly, is here to profit from software, I'm assuming, right? Profit from some form of software. Either you're employed writing software, or you're helping somebody else, or you're building an app, or you're building a device, or you're in some ways connected, or you're in a business. But like I think the previous speaker said, practically every industry has become a software industry, right? Companies selling cars need to have the appropriate level of application to highlight their product. Right? The opportunity in front of you is the number of devices, the variety of devices, the capability of these devices is exploding. Right? The platforms have grown, right? 15 years ago there was one platform in the industry. Now you have a variety of platforms in the industry, depending on who you are and what kind of code you're writing. We have evolved. Intel as an industry earlier used to have typical simple clamshell laptops. Now we're selling everything you see on the screen here. We're selling things which go 180 degrees, things with swivel, things with twist. We don't have anything which dances yet, but we'll figure out something which also dances and cooks pulao, etc. But you say, oh yeah, and things which break up, and this is interesting. This thing has a divorce, and this thing has a makeup, and you can divorce it and you can make up it, and they still function perfectly. I'm making a joke, but these things are tablets, and clamshells also, which just snap out from the keyboard and the battery base, and then you can snap it back and continue to use it. So the variety of form factors coming in is getting interesting. We're also getting gotten into phones. These are all the phones which have been launched, with all the players across the globe. More and more continues to come, and we've been talking about the architectures for these devices. What this also did is brought Intel pretty significantly into having Android available on Intel architecture. We'll talk in more detail about this on Thursday, but Android is now pretty well optimized on Intel architecture, and it's available as a distribution. So essentially, the opportunity, at least what you have in front of you to go profit from that base. These devices, as they expand into various markets, into various price segments, help you grow your potential customer base and installed base within a customer. Now, how do you basically go profit from that, right? End of the day, as a developer, you're going to have to implement something. Even if it is a simple game, which is Candy Crush or Temple Run or whatever you're playing, there is a functionality aspect, right? Now that functionality could be a game, that functionality could be to teach me how to walk in snow, or the functionality could be to help a business process. That's the essence of it. The other aspect is performance. That thing has to perform to its promise. Performance could be graphics, performance could be logic, performance could be responsiveness, performance could be around gameplay, various aspects of it. IDE, again, the whole design of it, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about it. A lot of people today have a significant weightage on interaction, what they feel about it, what they think about it, the whole experience around it of interacting with it. And I'll talk a little bit more about this and how this has changed and the science behind it. Innovation, right? I don't need to inform you that there's a crowd of applications on every platform you go, right? And you need to, put in a lot of effort to get your application or your idea to be discovered in some way or the other, right? So some form of innovation, either in the application or in the marketing or a combination of those, needs to be put in to make your application, your idea very discoverable and usable, so to say. The last one is something I throw in as people to think about as I should say think local or also think local, right? Everybody is aspiring to build for a global database, for a global consumer base, sorry. Sure, sometimes you might want to also consider just building an application right where you are to help something locally, right? Whether it's helping find bus routes or finding the best idlis in Malleshwaram or something as local as that, and start thinking in that domain also, so that you can at least quickly target a community and then potentially grow. This is not, somebody came up to me and said, well, when you say think local, are you telling us to think small? I'm like, no, right? Also think small and start off rather than trying to go address a consumer whom you don't know, never seen, and trying to get found in a huge, huge crowd, right, of applications worldwide. So think local is something which I go around telling people that, maybe you can have an impact in where you live, what you do, what your background is very quickly. Where you live doesn't necessarily mean physically, right? It could be that, hey, I play the guitar very well and hence I do something for the guitar community, and that's local, not physically local, but that's local to a small subset of people. I don't know if, how many people have heard or read this book. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. This is from a guy called Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel laureate. He and another individual had done research on how our brain works when we perceive things and react things. And there's a variety of papers behind this where they go into our ability to do system 1 and system 2 responses, right? When we see something, we have a bias and we respond to it immediately, and then there's a system 2 where we have an analytical portion of our brain. I mean, the papers which they wrote 20 years ago is, I think, probably the most cited reference in social psychology in this space, and they're probably the best referenced authors in this space. It's as the book says, thinking fast and slow. As I realized, you have to read the book a little slowly. But one thing which I caught in that book, it says, is that important advance is that emotion now looms much larger in our understanding of intuitive judgments and choices than it did in the past, right? Now, if you just look at that choices aspect and connect it back to how the consumers are behaving, you'll start to see some answers of how people choose these days, right? There's a significant portion. Our capability to analyze something analytically has increased dramatically. The moment I put up this slide, half of you who are on some kind of a device can quickly go to Google, search that name, figure out the background, all that stuff. So we can quickly do analysis. Our tools to do analysis is phenomenal these days. Every 9-year-old is a researcher who can access the device. But the book and the authors argue that we rely on our emotion a lot more than our analytical capabilities these days. Right? And it's interesting and goes into a lot of details. Something for you to think about as you start building ideas, tools, applications, because when your consumer is interacting with your application, the emotion, the first thought, the top of the mind thought is extremely important. And the impression you make is extremely important. The truth science behind it, not just, oh, first impression is the best impression. Maybe that's just a simplified way of saying it, but it's critical, at least from a developer's perspective, to start thinking of the system one response which consumers have. And this also connects with what we're going to do later in terms of how you interact with computing, or how you interact with devices. Let me quickly, jump into that, right? Traditionally, we've interacted with our computing with, let's say, either touch or typing, etc. More and more, we're beginning to start to see that different senses are getting integrated into how we interact with computing, right? Sound, vision, and vision not just iris recognition, but potentially more movement of your eyes, looking away, looking at the device, and how you build logic around it. All that is sort of coming in, and of course, recognizing you, speaking to your device, giving commands to your device, etc., is becoming more important. To add to this, the capabilities of your devices, which most of you hold, have many of these kind of sensors, and some of your devices may have all of these sensors, right? Practically, as I was going through my 2-week, holiday, across the northern part of India, my compass was always on, especially because I'm in really, remote parts of the country, not knowing which way we're headed, which way are the Himalayas, etc. Really useful tool, right? I'm just saying from a personal holiday perspective. Accelerometer was, how many of you played Temple Run? Come on, be honest. That's it? There's a few more, I think, in the crowd. Accelerometer, you guys know, right? I mean, if you don't tilt your phone, you don't get the coins, right? So, it's their gyro, accelerometer, both, work, in tandem very well to allow you to play those games. But, you can do a variety of more things. GPS, of course, the value of that, at least in this part of the world, is pretty well established, or not, depending on how you use it. And of course, light. Many of us have used the light sensors primarily to conserve battery type of applications, right? Brightness, up and down type of thing. But as you start getting more sophisticated light sensors integrated with the camera sensors, you can do some really interesting stuff in terms of how you balance pictures between your front camera, back camera, and probably more stuff. All these in combination, and with developing the power of sensors, lead to what we call something called perceptual computing, or the ability to deal with your computers in a very different way. What I want to do is just do some simple demos, and we'll get Shweta. Hey Shweta, come on. You can welcome Shweta.
Face recognition, gesture recognition, and voice recognition. So the demos I'm going to showcase are related to hand gestures. The first one is the minions. When I see a dragon, I have to squish the dragon. Stop that.
Oh. I better stay away from that.
So this is the basic idea. As soon as it's all based on gestures.
Wait, so you haven't touched anything, you don't have a joystick, you don't have nothing, right? You're just using a simple hand gestures to play this game. Okay.
This is how it works.
This is a very simple illustration, although people build very complex demos. Also very important here is that she's at a very close range, as you can imagine, and what she's using, if you can't see, is just a regular laptop with a camera which has a bunch of special technology in it, but it's getting more and more commodity. And it's recognizing her hand movements, and of course the logic is built into it. Right? Now I'm thinking, how do I use it? I don't play too many games, right? So my life is PowerPoint. I'm a pretty boring kind of guy. How can I use this technology, right? So Shweta, how can I use this technology?
So second, the one I have for me to control my So
You may need to get that screen for them. Okay, yeah, you got that screen, yeah.
the second screen, I'm going to control my PowerPoint, move up and down my PowerPoint using my hand gestures.
Okay.
As soon as you move my hand, it's automatically moving forward.
So I can get rid of this
Yes.
and just do this, and the slides will change.
And I also can move back.
I can actually move back also because I do make mistakes. You know, when they showed me this, I said, you know, the perfect application for me for this is I'm typically not a lunch meeting type of guy. A lot of people love to go for lunch and chat. I'm like, I want to sit here at my desk and just shut down my brain and don't want to talk to anybody and bring my food at my desk. But the problem is, while I'm doing lunch, I'm reading some material, and my hands keep going between the keyboard, switching slides. Like, hey, this is perfect for me. I can keep eating and keep doing next slide, or do scroll up and down if I'm looking at web pages. Right? This doesn't need millions of lines of code. This is what, probably a few lines of code, as long as you use the SDK. But these are mechanisms of how you can interact with your computer better without having to build some very, very complex pieces of code. And now, this example is just simplistic. The ability for you guys to take this and make it more creative is what is important. What else can you do for that?
The third demo I'm going to showcase is about voice. So I'm going to use some simple commands.
Okay.
What's happening on?
I'll just give it a second to warm up.
What's happening? What's happening?
It's running off too early.
What's happening? Sorry.
We were worried about that in the morning also.
What's happening on Twitter?
Nah, didn't do it. So we're having some issues in terms of how the camera and the voice sensors are getting integrated. But essentially, the way we use this is you can open Twitter, open Notebook, open Notepad, command and control, things which we typically do with the voice control in your phone. Now, those kinds of integrations you're also seeing on your typical PC environment. The benefit of this is it better for that?
What's happening on Twitter?
There you go.
What's happening on Twitter? Finally. Search Google for.
Idli. I'm hungry.
Search Google for. Search Google for.
There you go. Searching for something.
Idli. It might not recognize the idli word. Search Google for Bangalore.
Just give it to me, I'll train it and it'll recognize the Indies in the first shot, right? All right, Shweta, I think we get the point. Don't worry about it. Thank you very much.
So the seller in our booth also, they can come and
Oh yeah, thank you, yeah. So we can stop by our booth and we have this and we can look at this. Thank you. The point is, the demos are very simplistic deliberately, just to illustrate the point that the ability to interact with the system is getting more and more interesting. The capabilities are there. What you do with it is, of course, to your imagination, right? How you take this is a perceptual challenge oriental.com. This is the SDK. You can download the SDK, play with it. You can go to our booth, check it out. I was telling them that the first time I did a speech recognition demo was probably 2004 or 2005, I think, right? This is not new. It's no big deal, frankly, right? But what has changed is the capability, the computing, the advancements in microphones, the noise cancellation techniques have gotten a lot better that you can go off and do these things in a much simplistic manner. Plus, our nature, earlier, it would be really painful if 20 people sitting in the office and said, open Excel, open spreadsheet, and like, nah. Today, we do transactions with computers a lot. Earlier, like I mentioned, right? I mentioned the book. Or you can very quickly go to your phone or machine and say, search thinking fast and slow, Daniel, right? That's all really, most of the time that's what we're doing with our computers, at least from a transactional perspective. Why not use these gestures, etc. And of course, for the small majority of people who play games here, you can also play games more intensely without getting into too much physical contact with the devices, right? These days I walk by the aisles of my office and some of my team is doing this, right? They're not holding anything. Why are they doing this? Well, they're actually playing the game in the machine, and then Shweta is doing like this, and people walk by her office like, okay, geek, right? Like the guy said in the morning, geeks. But the ability to interact without necessarily physically holding a mouse or a joystick or something else may have advantages from a health perspective also. Again, right? Something for you to go explore. Encourage you to go check out this website. There's actually a pretty interesting contest going on right now. The second phase of that has just started. There's lots of money, lots of recognition, lots of infrastructure behind it. Go check it out, and if you want to, put your ideas there. The other thing I want to switch to is, I talked a little bit about too many devices, right? How many of you write code to exactly one platform? Rhetorical question, right? I'm assuming each of you write code to at least 2 platforms, yeah? At least 2? Anybody writes code to more than 3 platforms? Well, there's a set of hands there. I was thinking 1 or 2, but there's a reasonable set of hands, like, I can see in the audience. How easy is that? Writing code to a variety of platforms. No big deal? Happens all the time? So one thing we believe is that HTML5 is one technology which will help you alleviate that. It's not going to solve completely, and I'll get Raghavendra quickly up. Why don't you come up and set up? I'll get Raghavendra quickly to come up and show you something which is how it can help you, go solve that problem, right? Everybody knows what HTML5 is. I don't need to introduce HTML5 to this audience, right? It's a pretty good industry standard. Hey Raghavendra, welcome. So what do you got for me?
Yeah. So Intel has a tool called XDK. It's a plugin which is available along with
your microphone. Can you hear him? No, I don't think so. Kind of on, but you may have a screen.
Okay. So this is a plugin that is available for Chrome. You can get it from Chrome.
Better?
Yeah. Okay. We can get it from Chrome Web Store. You can see it on the top. It's called Intel XDK. The biggest thing is like you are building cross-platform applications with HTML5. The intention, one of the main intention is to reach to more audience with a quicker development cycle and things like that. Right? So this application this tool actually focuses on 3 major verticals of development. There's like you develop, test, and deploy. It's not a big deal, right? It's common thing, like everybody does the same thing.
Yep.
But from the develop standpoint,
We kind of did it differently. We would deploy and then test, but that's a separate topic.
yeah. So from the develop standpoint, you can create an app while going to the website. When you create an app, it gives you a template where the majority of the navigation, everything is being taken care with respect to HTML5. And it supports CSS3 animations and transitions, everything, so you'll be able to take care of that. And you will be able to write your code in the XDK itself, or if you love to use your own development tool, you are free to go ahead and use that.
Okay. Now, is this only for Windows or Android, or how does this work?
This is available. It's not related to Android or anything. It's like, as I said, it's a cross-platform application.
Okay.
So you build it, and you are basically going to test it on multiple devices from this single interface itself.
Wait, so I can't see this very well, but are you saying these are oh, okay. So I can see iPhone 5, iPhone 4, a bunch of other platforms which you can go and test out.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other biggest problem is like the time to market is like I can deploy it quickly to market, but what happens is because of we have so many different variety of form factors now with different sizes. An organization cannot have all of them in their hand, right? They cannot procure all of them. So what this application does is that it supports multiple simulators where you can change and
Also,
see
you just switch from an iPad to the Motorola Razr Eye to something iPhone in between.
Right, yeah. You can switch to iPhone and see how your application looks with different form factors. Okay, right? That you can decide. Then the other, and then the same thing, there is an app available in Android market and also same thing available in iOS, where you can deploy it temporarily to a temporary store on your app, and then you can test it on your app as well.
Wait, so you mean I can't actually, I don't have to post my crummy, not so tested app on the store actually?
Yeah, you can test it and you can distribute it among your QA members, and then you can continue. You can fix the issues if anything comes up. The other really interesting thing is, let's assume that I'm writing an app which is a geolocation based app, right?
Yeah.
So what what this app does is basically so generally what happens, let's say I'm going to develop an app. As soon as I'm on the road with the GPS on, I might want to show offers within 300 meters from my location, right? So in such situation, if I want to develop and test it, it's a very tedious job, because we need to know the longitude and latitude of each and every location to test it, to post the data against our database and come up with a list of offers.
Huge problem with this, right? If you do this now, and if you make it easy for them, then the developers can't say, listen, I have to go to Kashmir to test this app, right? So you need to give me money for that. So you're saying without going there, you can actually do this.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And the advantage here is, like, application can use it. You can see a navigation down there. So automatically your application, right, and it shows those parameters. So it keeps posting those longitude and latitude information to your application, and you will be able to consume it and do your programming accordingly. Finally, the deployment part of it, you can deploy to all major stores, application stores. You can deploy to iOS or Android or Windows Store, and also web apps like Facebook or Chrome Store. Everywhere you will be able to deploy with a single source code, and you'll be able to manage it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Raghavendra. You can switch back. He said quickly, the way to go get it is this. I didn't want to go into too much background, but we know HTML5 is everywhere. Our objective is to make sure that it's a standard and it doesn't get messed up with various nuances and remains as a real standard. We have significant open source contributions. We continue to build tools, which is what you just saw from a demo perspective. You can go check this out. And this is almost the first step, or the second step in a series of steps we're working on to help make this environment available, more extensively to developers across devices to ease your cross-platform effort, right? And finally, just sort of closing, right? Our objective is to, get you all the tools and capabilities which we talked about. In addition, get you early systems, as appropriate. We also do a variety of labs and user experience training, etc., to, get you up to speed on what we should be doing differently or how your app should be thinking differently in interacting with consumers. We clearly are focused on making sure that we grow your business from a technology perspective and from an experience perspective, in making sure that the innovativeness and your competitiveness and of course your productivity is impacted with things to do. The fundamental, one more, the link here is intel.com/software. Almost everything we talk about here, you can go to this place and get all the information from there. Our fundamental belief is that if you go and do more detailed analysis around all these, you'll be able to start interacting with the various technologies. Sorry, one more plug I need to give is right after this keynote, these guys are going to go into a track where they'll spend a few hours teaching people how to build applications for the next generation platform using these natural interactions. For people who are interested in diving deep into what they just showed, that's very wonderful. Maybe you guys need to run to go to that workshop, right, and get ready for that. Quickly summarizing, lots of platforms coming in the consumer's hands, and they're going to be using it. They're not buying these platforms to keep the homes warm. or run up their electricity bill or run up their Wi-Fi bill and just watch videos, right? They're going to be using it in multitude of ways. Opportunity is yours, right? There are new experiences which are coming. We saw a few. There's a lot more coming up. How you use that, how your app use that, how your competitor is extremely important, and that can prove whether you're capable, you're differentiated with somebody else or not. Our objective is to sort of build these ecosystems, and we fundamentally believe that you guys as developers will be shaping the culture. I keep saying this again and again, right? Developers are extremely key in actually shaping the culture of societies and people. So you have the ability and capability to go off and do that. Thank you very much.